Hi, thanks for joining us for our third Puppeteers of Color Conversations. I'm Liz Hara, and I am here today with David Bizzaro and Chris Isaac Hayes. We started the series to spotlight brilliant artists and discuss their experiences as people of color in our community. And today we are delighted to be talking with Edna Bland down in Florida. We'll be starting with a discussion between Chris and Edna, a little about our moderators. Chris Hayes is an actor, writer, and puppeteer living in Atlanta. On stage, he's performed with Dad's Garage, the Center for Puppetry Arts, the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. On TV, he's been seen on shows like The Vampire Diaries, The Today Show, and MTV's Teen Wolf, which is awesome. He is also the Sesame Street Muppet performer for Hoots the Owl. Off camera, Chris has a background in Pan-Africanism and African-American historical research, some of which can be found in the book African American Connecticut Explored. David Bizzaro is an Emmy Award-winning Latinx puppet builder, puppeteer, director, and actor living in New York City. He has worked with Sesame Street, the Jim Henson Company, and the Flaming Lips, puppeteered on Comedy Central and Saturday Night Live, and recently just created and puppeteered a character for Sci-Fi's new show, Sci-Fi Wire After Dark. David will be handling the Q&A section today, and I will shoot it off to David to explain Q&A.
Thank you so much, Liz. Love you both, everybody. Oh my gosh, your faces, it's so good to see you both. So Q&A is super fun. This is going to be a great opportunity for everybody who's watching to submit your questions that you may have coming into the event and conversation, or if you hear something that's being said during the interview portion, the discussion portion, put it in the Q&A and let us know. Especially make sure that you're putting in your questions while you have them, while the discussion is being made. Because once we get to that portion, we want to make sure we've got your questions ready to go and get those moving. And I also want to say, if we don't get to your question, we're really sorry. We're going to hold on to those questions and bring them up if they work for future conversations, but we try to get to as many as we can in the time that we have. So yeah, that I believe is how our Q&A is going to work. Thank you, Liz.
Excellent. All right, let's start off. Chris, please introduce our fantastic guest today.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. Really excited for y'all to be here. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Especially now, we know it's so easy to just stay home, do nothing these days when we're all kind of inside. But the fact that you guys tuned in and you're ready to have conversations means that you're ready to open up and to take conversations home with you, which is the most important part, like I talked about last time, is making sure that these conversations that are had here in these little boxes also can go home to people who you love and people who you know are struggling to think about different things, and we can have open conversations. So hopefully this conversation here inspires. That being said, I'll say it again, Black Lives Matter. Take care of yourselves, wear a mask, wash your hands, all these things. And I want to invite my guest. I have to say it. So my guest today is Edna Bland. She's a certified educator, teaching artist, arts integration specialist, and puppeteer, of course. She was mentored by both Carol Spinney, Big Bird, and Dr. Loretta Long, Susan from Sesame Street. And historically, she's one of the only professional African-American female puppeteers in America. So you're in for a treat. Her studies include the Kennedy Center, the Lincoln Center at Juilliard, and Shakespeare's Globe Theatre in London, and also worked in the entertainment business industry at such companies as the New York Emmy Awards and the Sony Music Entertainment. Here we go, my favorite part of this bio. She has an MFA in Entertainment Creative Writing, an MS in Entertainment Business, a BS in Organizational Management, and an AAS in Music Business. Ladies and gentlemen, Edna Bland, how you doing? Hey, I'm gonna unmute her. There we go. Yes. No. All right, she's muted. We're working on it.
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there she goes.
Hey.
It happens once in interview. How you doing out there?
Hi. Doing well. Thank you.
That's great. I'm so glad you could join us. Are you guys starting school there?
Monday.
Monday. Okay, cool. So you're pre-planning right now?
Well, we're done pre-planning.
Oh, cool. Well, it's over. You're right.
We're done right in. Yeah. Monday will be the day.
This is crazy. Thanks so much for joining me. This is a conversation is so perfect for with the age right now because we're getting ready to go back into school, and I wanted to talk to a puppeteer who's also an educator, which is great. So I'm going to start you off with the base question. I'm not going to go rogue. I may go a little rogue. I'm sorry. Put your questions in the Q&A.
It's been a long week, Crispy.
Oh my goodness. Okay, let's just start. I want you to, if you can you share with us your background culturally, your cultural background?
I am African American. I did hear at a family reunion that I have a great grandmother who was 100% Native American, Cherokee.
Okay.
So, but from both maternal, paternal side, African American.
That's fantastic. Well, it's good. I'm like, that's great. And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Huntington, Long Island.
Okay. Okay, cool. That's what I was hoping. I'm hoping it's perfect. My plan's working. The reason I asked that is I know right now you're in New York. You're in Florida. Sorry, you're in Florida right now. So you're in New York. This is fantastic. This is great. Cool. So I want to talk about education, the things. You have a lot of education. So I want to talk about your experiences.
Hold on, Chris. I want to clarify that even though I currently live in Florida, I am a New Yorker. I always identify as a New Yorker who currently lives in Florida.
What's your baseball team?
Just say. Yankees. Come on.
Okay.
But I lived in Queens, so I went to Shea Stadium. I know it's renamed something now since I've been down here, but I've done some Mets too. So it's.
Are they logging off? No. We have both fans here. This is great. So no, that's good. That's very good. Growing up, because I wanted to know so many. I'm filled with so many questions, but I'm just gonna stick to the script. I'm gonna be cool. So let's talk about your education growing up. Did you were you trained or introduced to the arts at a young age? Is that something part of education, or was that something that came in early?
Actually came in early. That's part of family, because on both sides. So my mom, my grandfather was a bishop in church, and my mom worked in the church. And so she was, she started the children's choir. She was in the adult choir. Anything that had to do with the arts and stuff like that, my mom was, totally in it. And then my mother and my sister Angela and we were the Bland family singers. So, when I grew up in a traditional African-American Pentecostal.
Okay.
And so, they would say, okay, it's time for, we want the Bland family to come up and give us a song. So ever since I was wee little, I was singing with my family. My mom had a amazing soprano, operatic soprano voice.
Wow.
And, she actually auditioned for Juilliard and made it in, but she couldn't go because just some family things happened. It was in the 40s and stuff like that, and she didn't make it. Later, when I got to go to Juilliard myself to study, it was like my whole family, when I announced it, they all started crying because it was my mom's dream to go. So her favorite color was green. My mom has passed on. Both my parents have. Was green. And that first day when I wore a green dress and I walked in and I said, "We're here, Mama. We made it. We made it." So now on my dad's side, my grandfather was in Black Vaudeville. Charles
Really?
Willis. He was a nightclub singer, had a couple of homes going on in Manhattan, and so that was his route, what he did. And my grandmother was a seamstress for a Olympic ice skater named Sonia Henning, who became a Hollywood actress. I think she went to Hollywood and did like a couple of films, but she was her seamstress. So, it's like,
You had the entire theater in the family.
right. And so it's like, okay, that's why I do what I do. It's kind of in the DNA. Okay.
No, that's awesome.
I
That's
get
crazy. Oh my
it.
gosh. Yeah, I was just talking to someone about Black Vaudeville because we're getting ready. I'm here. My wife's a teacher as well, and she does theater. So we've been delving into that whole Black Vaudeville era, and she's just like, I don't understand how blackface in particular. She was really that like blew her mind to watch white actors literally put on blackface, but then to see Black actors also put on blackface, and that's something she was like. So that era is just.
Yeah, crazy, yeah. Absolutely. So so the arts have been in me ever since I was a child, and I have 2 aunts on the maternal side who were teachers, and so I was bitten by the bug of teaching. Since we're talking, about education, it was a summer camp, and there was I'll never forget. It was a little girl. Her name was Clarissa, and she put her letters backwards. And I just said, I'm going to teach this girl how to spell her name, how to write it correctly. And I just, kept on her. And then one day she walked up to me with this paper, name was spelled correctly.
Oh, wow.
He said, look, teacher. And like, we didn't, I was 16. They didn't have to call us teacher. But
Right.
She said, look, teacher, and showed me her name. And I mean, talking about,
Hey.
that was it. So I originally went to college to be a music teacher.
Really? Okay, that makes a lot of sense because you have that DNA, that family line.
Yeah, but the arts were always in me. So I went to be a music teacher, but I also liked business. I liked coordinating things and putting things together. I was that kid at 12 years old where, me and my friends would go to the movies and, I'm the one coordinating. Whose parents going to pick us up? Who's going to drop us up? This is how much money you need to bring. And I would do all that stuff when I'm like 12 years old. So it was a spring break, and I go home, and this was a college in Rochester, New York that I attended. And a friend, a former classmate was like, there's a school here on Long Island called Five Towns College where you can combine it together and study the music business. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, and I, like I said, I love music. I was a walking TV guide as a kid. So, television was my thing too. And he goes, yeah, and then you can hang out with famous people. And I was like,
what are we doing here? Get your clothes on.
Transfer.
That's so when I think about I can only really talk to my experience, but just like when I talk a lot of Black people, we push education. A lot of older ones push education as being really, really important, and business as being really, really important as things that claim kind of our stake in in America, really, just like having Black-owned business, owning something, and the other thing of educating yourself in order to make yourself better. That's what my parents were really all about. They were like, let's get that, and they were supportive, but they were always about, well, study your business and make sure you're going to school. That's one of the main things. And even though they were very supportive of arts, they wanted to make sure that business was in there. Was that something that, can you speak the same lingo as that? You think that did your parents want to make sure you had that business background, or was that just your?
That was just me naturally.
Just you naturally.
College background. It was the education. Like, there wasn't a thought of not going to college.
Okay.
It wasn't forced, like, you gonna go to college kind of thing. But it was just like, this is what we do. This is what we do.
That's good.
So that, some, like, everybody in my family even attempted college. Maybe they didn't graduate, but still they attempted, they went, because that's just the road, that we wanted to do. But I will tell you, when I was in high school, I wanted to go to the music college. It's called Roberts Wesleyan College in Rochester, New York. And I wanted to go to that school. And my guidance counselors actually told me no. Now, I'm in the top half of my school, level. So, I was a good A-B student, but they're like, no, just go to the local community college. That's it. Now, there's nothing wrong with community college, guys. Absolutely not. But I wanted to go to this certain school, and they were trying to talk me out of it.
what was their, what do you think that their methodology was behind that? That's weird, because I've had the same experience. I know a lot of minority people who have had weird experiences with like high school guidance, and high school is that really formative years to have someone go like, why don't you try the army? Like, what?
Right.
Like, what do you think? Like why is that such a thing?
I think it's stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that. I think it's like, this is pretty much all you know, you want to go to college, then okay, try the community college thing, because, you know, you're probably just go get a job somewhere anyway. Like, you know, the expectations for us was not high, but
Yeah.
I was blessed and fortunate to have a family that said, no, if that's what you want to do, then you go do it. So I have had the, just the blessing of having a family that backed me up.
That's really important.
Yeah,
very.
very.
I feel like that's something that for a lot of artists of color, and probably all artists around. I'm not just gonna. I mean, this is Puppeteers of Color, but I'm sure a lot of artists have the idea of wanting to pursue anything, a lot of things, and not having the family backing, not having financial backing, educational backing. So it is really important you have a family that's going to be there for you. Were there any other like hurdles or any like challenges like during those formative years in high school that you were like, oh my God, I'm gonna get through this?
High school, middle school is, of course, is so awkward, you know. Right. It's high school was a little better. I was not super popular. I was definitely in the arts though, you know, and I was a huge fan of the movie and TV show Fame. And
okay.
I wanted my life to be that school, you know? And so even in 12th grade, like every class I could pick was some kind of an arts class and stuff like that. And it was just a passion in me that I just, you know, and, you know, just push forward as best as possible.
Right.
To telling you the biggest challenge that I did have that not too many people know, mm-hmm. letting you in on a secret, well, not, you know, is that, in 12th grade, I didn't do too well. My mom was ill. I had to work, and besides going to school. So there were some grades that were failing, that were going down. Long story short, my mom had the teacher was talking about me in class and saying that I was going to fail. Had a parent-teacher conference. The teacher was like, you know what? I don't care, I'm a failure anyway. If she didn't get her act together, I'm gonna fail her. She actually said that. And so I tried my best. When I took the test, I failed the test with language arts test. I failed it by 7 points. 7 points.
Oh man.
She would not pass me. I was not allowed to attend my high school graduation.
Wow.
Yep. But fortunately, the college that I went to, you know, that's kind of like freshman year is 13th grade, you know?
Yeah.
And you know what? Just come take the language arts class here. If you fail, of course, you're out of school. But if you pass, you just keep going. So that's what happened. And I passed it and kept going.
So I want to really like highlight that right there. Not just something to highlight, but it's like you have a person of power and who's someone who's supposed to be a mentor in your life, who's definitely doesn't feel like they're lifting you up. And of course, obviously, there is your part of it of do your schoolwork and all that kind of stuff. But at the same point in time, there are a lot of other resources and socioeconomic things and things pushing on your life. Like if you're working, that's a totally different thing. We talk about that when we have a lot of Latin American students around here. And sometimes it's like, they're not going to do a lot of homework because they go to jobs or maybe their family hasn't seen them all day and they expect them to be home with them and they have a different cultural kind of environment than what we assume everyone can't go home and just start doing homework all day. And so it's just empathy.
Yeah. But it's just a determination of, even though there are, barriers that might come up and there'll be people out there who want to hold you down. You got to have the fire inside your heart, whatever you want to achieve, and you just got to go for it. And like I just happen to be very fortunate to have a family to back me up. Some people don't, as you know, Chris.
Right.
Yet again, what is in your heart? What is it that you really want to do? When I changed over from, from education, be an education major, to the music business, my family was not happy about that.
Really? Okay.
They were not happy about that at all until we got to the Emmy Awards.
Right. Like, why are we here? Okay.
Then they got to be seat fillers and, record companies, they got free music. Then it was like, oh, okay.
I think you almost have to prove to everybody that, like, this is real. This is real. My dream is sustainable and fine.
Well, it was just a genuine concern. They were like, look, you're not really going to make money unless you're a record executive or,
right.
High up on the chain and stuff. And even though it was the arts family, they just wanted me to be secure. And I got that. Why I was a person who was just following my heart.
Right,
and
which is fine, yeah.
I say, like, my whole career has been totally following my heart.
My dad always said, he's still alive. He says it all the time. He's still here. He always said the worst thing he could dream for me would be a little bit of success. So enough to make you think that you're like, oh, I'm here. And for you to just like either think you made it and stop trying or stop caring, like goal achieved. So I think it's always in the back of my head, like you said, keep that, the fire is always lit and it's always pushing towards a goal. And a little bit of success does not mean you made it. It's continue to work hard, but always stay humble.
But what is the definition of success,
That's a very good point.
It's whatever you feel, like you said, whatever that goal is, I found out through my career that the way I wanted things to happen didn't always happen.
Mm-hmm.
But it happened in some way, some form or another.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's great. Okay, I'm gonna keep moving. So this is Puppeteers of Color. So I want to talk about when puppetry reared its ugly head in your life, or when did the puppets come in? They always kind of like find you, or they like ends up, they happen upon you.
Well, they found me for sure. I call it my nasty little habit.
Nasty habit.
Nasty habit, puppetry. Well, working at the, like I said, now I'm an educator, but prior to being an educator, I was in the, like I just said, the music and entertainment business. I worked for the New York Emmy Awards for 7 years, right in Times Square. 7 years of my life. It's fabulous. And besides the award ceremony, we had different dinners and events for the members. So there was an award ceremony called the Silver Circle Award, where we inducted people who have been in television for 25 years or more into the circle. So this particular year, back in the 90s, we inducted Carol Spinney, who we all know is, the late Carol Spinney, who was Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch, right? So I'm talking to him on the phone and, doing some arrangements, business stuff. And I said, I have a confession to make. I always wanted to be a real life kid on Sesame Street, not a puppeteer, not about the puppets. I wanted to be a real life. And I specifically said, I wanted to be Gordon and Susan's child. You had
it written already. It's perfect.
They had Miles. I wanted to be the dog.
Take care of it. I already have my position.
Right, exactly. And so this was like since I was a kid. And my mom knew this. And when I was a kid, at our local mall, Dr. Loretta Long, who plays Susan from Sesame Street, or the character, the role of her, she was at the mall. And so I walked up to her and I told her, I want you to be my TV mom. And I never forget the smile, she's such a beautiful smile.
Yeah, no.
I just, the beautiful smile, and I don't even remember what she said. I just remember her embracing me. And I always just had that in the back of my, that was my fantasy, that I lived on Sesame Street, like, and Susan and Gordon were my parents. So I tell him this story and he says, well, why don't you come to the set? And I'm like, what? So he invites me to the set, and I totally regress to being like, 4 or 5 years old, even though I see the camera and the lights, it's like, oh my gosh, it's the 1, 2, 3, it's Mr. Hooper's story, Big Bird's Nest. And I absolutely just loved it, of course, it's a magical place, as you know.
Right.
But I don't remember that day seeing any humans, human actors, but I saw the puppeteers. I saw, like, it was Fran Brill, it was Marty Robinson, and they were, you know, under things and rolling things and whatever. And I, just like that, it was love at first sight. And I said, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I want to do this. And so, long story short, he said, well, if you're truly serious about this, okay, I will show you. And you are allowed to come here anytime you want. And I went as much as I could and just sat in the back in the corner and just learned, and or in the commissary with him, or in, you know, the dressing room or break room, just wherever he can talk to me. And, you know, of course, we all know he's absolutely was wonderful, wonderful man. Yeah. So can I just share this other part of the,
sure,
because it's really
wait,
cool.
There's more.
Yeah, but wait, there's more. So I go to an event one day, Madison Square Garden, and I go with my sister Angela. And before we walk in, I said, you know, I'm going to go to the restroom, you know? So I go in, and who's standing there in the restroom? But Loretta Long. Okay, good. I was like, I hope it's not Carol Spinney. Okay, good. All right. It's fine if he's in there, but okay, that's great. That makes more sense. That is Loretta. So I call her by, you know, I call her name Loretta, and we start talking, and we end up becoming great friends. We created a reading literacy program, and I started touring around with her using my own puppets. Wow. So the woman who I met at like 7 years old, who I wanted to be my TV mom, I actually grew up working with. That's fantastic. And so this is interesting because it's now we jump ahead because we talk about how it was when you were in 12th grade. You had this person who had privilege and who was in a position of power as a teacher who wasn't there to support you. Unfortunately, I'm sure she had her reasons. But now you jump ahead to, I mean, you're an adult and you have these people who are also in this position of power who are coming here to build ladders and build you up. And I think that's really important. Is to, yes. Yeah. Yes, yes. It's important to have mentors, and it's important to be a mentee, you know, to, you know, for you know what I'm saying, to be a mentee, but also, you know, you have mentors, but then you also mentor others. Right, you know? Yeah. Yeah, you got to pass. That's very important. And I love the fact that, I mean, the idea of Sesame in general, it's performance, and it's also, there's a education component to it. So it's really cool that you're able to take, I do puppetry, and now I'm also doing literacy, which is great. So it's starting to push you to where present day Edna is now almost. Yeah, absolutely. So, oh my gosh, I have so much I want to do. Okay, so at this point, you're still in New York. And you're touring. Are you doing anything else puppet wise? Are you getting into the guilds? Are you messing around with the clubs and the groups? Oh, absolutely. I joined PoC, the New York City Guild, and I got to the point of being the vice president of the guild. Yeah, and it was great. I had wonderful development at that time. Wonderful development. Puppeteers, you know, where you can just go and try out things and just, you know, hear from the other professionals. It was a wonderful, enriching experience. I also started doing puppetry in church. Okay. And I developed, even had puppet teams, mostly middle schoolers. Why? Because they have that energy, okay, to hold up the puppet, right? All that time. So they have the energy, the desire, the innocence is still in them, okay? And plus middle schoolers need some place to belong. They, you know, that's where they start really dividing off in their different cliques, categories of who they, so they need a sense of belonging. So a puppet team was perfect for them because I would watch these kids just help each other. They would mentor each other. Oh, hold your arm up, you know, don't forget, you know, your eye contact. You know, they would do these different things. We would do competitions. They would, you know, there was never anything negative. It was always like, we're the team, we're together, we're working together. And so it just, you know, it worked out great that way, you know. So I know you had Raymond Raymond
Yeah,
Carr.
Raymond Kai.
He talked about One-Way Street, and I remember seeing Raymond that time where he was on the Dream Team. I was there.
Oh, wow.
I remember seeing him. So that was a huge development for a lot, and it is for a lot of African American puppeteers too, working in the church and being and developing that way. So I was just like a sponge, Chris. Anywhere that I could learn about puppetry, I was just grabbing it because I just fell in love with this art form.
And that's our space. I mean, like puppets in general, but like that, the church is our space. And it's like, it's kind of a cultural haven for a lot of Black people. And it's every time I talk to someone who's done puppets with church, it's like, oh yeah, oh duh. Cause like the Black church is so much more than just a place of worship. It's a pillar of our communities. Sometimes literally it's just holding up it's the only thing you can look at in the neighborhood and be like, oh, that's a nice building. What is happening? You know, they're like, the building fund is holding the church up.
Right. And if you were fortunate to be at a church that embraced the arts, we call it creative arts ministry, that was great, because a lot of people, I mean, we know a lot of famous people talking about singers and performers that started in the church, right? A lot, right? Started in the church, but then they moved on into the secular world because they really couldn't see themselves, you know, they weren't really allowed to be themselves in the church. So if you're at a church, and my church was, it was in Queens, Holla, Evangel Church, Long Island City, where I really got to hone those skills and have those teams, and got to do any kind of creative art ministry I wanted to do.
That's crazy. Was that
great satisfaction for, you know, for me to release my artistic and do it in a positive way.
And was that your first foray into like kind of like more structured teaching?
Yes. I actually ended up working for my church's school.
Okay, oh, that's
And so it all just started intertwining and stuff like that together.
That's crazy. That's all good. Your years in the guild, what was the makeup of the guild itself? Like, were you solely minority? Did you see a good mixer, diverse-wise?
Yes, there was. At that time, there was a nice mix. There is a picture. We were in the New York Times back in 1999. It's online somewhere, of the New York City Guild, and you can see the diversity in that picture of African Americans, Latinx, Asian, so mostly white, of course, but still we were in there.
Being in there, yeah. Because I mean, I'm the guiltiest person on this chat room, because my guild membership stuff is just like it fades. Once I had a kid, I was like, I'm out of here, y'all. But I mean, that's I want to. I mean, I like seeing that diversity in a lot of the guilds. I know not all of them are as diverse, and it's like, what do you think it is? What do you think can bring in more diversity into the different guilds? I mean, I'm sure the place in Wyoming, they're like, we got nobody, but surely there are options for the Southeast, Northeast, you know.
Exactly. Well, I currently am on the board. We just got elected to the board of directors for the Puppeteers of America, and I'm also the chair of the diversity committee.
So this is your job, okay? My question is your mission statement.
Exactly. So right after the George Floyd and you know, Black Lives Matter things started happening up, what was about 3 weeks now it's been, or I don't, wow. But anyway, I got a lot of phone calls from people who were like exactly what you said. We want to be more diverse, or we are diverse, we believe in it. So where can we find more puppeteers of color? And you know, we're out there, and I can even tell you how I even got to be on that committee is because year before last, I went to the Puppeteers of America Regional. I went to the Southeast Regional Festival and Northeast Regional.
Oh, wow.
And the East, when I went there, I went to see Hobie Ford because to me, he's, you know, I mean, genius.
Enough said, yeah.
Exactly. And also Tarish Pipkins.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we got to get him on. If people know him, hook us up. Yeah.
well, I'll get him for you. So so I wanted to meet him and Hobie, and so, but looking around, it was wonderful, wonderful festival in Asheville, but basically Tarish and I were the only ones of color that were there.
In
So
North Carolina.
Yes. So then when I went to the Northeast one, I was the only one there.
And where was that?
That was up in Vermont. It was held in Vermont, but still it covered New York and DC and Baltimore. And I'm going, okay, I know there's puppeteers of color there. Why
You're going to Vermont?
Right, exactly. Now, mind you, I was treated wonderfully.
Right, yeah.
Okay? I cannot say anything bad. It was just an observation of like, where is the diversity here? And why not?
And a lot of times it's like in those situations where you find yourself the only Black person. For me, most Christmases, when I'm in Kentucky, and it's not that you're in a hostile environment. It's just like you said. It's like I don't know. It's an almost undescribable feeling to just kind of be like, whoa, it feels empty in a way, even though you're surrounded with people. It's really weird.
Right, and people that love you and care about you, stuff like that. It's just you just make that observation of like, wait, I'm the only one like myself in this environment. That's all it is, an observation.
It's such a sad thing, like the state that what our country has kind of come to right now, but at the same time, it's opened a lot of eyes and doors, and there are a lot of opportunities that I think are on the horizon everywhere. Almost every facet of America is kind of go, whoa, what's going on around here? And looking around for the first time, and it's almost like a turtle sticking its head out of the shell. I'm like, oh, I thought it was just shell, So we're in that weird position, but at the same time, it's kind of invigorating to be like, oh, this is the time to make movements and have conversations. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation.
And I think, thinking back, as a kid, growing up in the suburbs, I was allowed to hang out with everybody, I do remember there were some incidences where I was playing with my friends and I had to go to the restroom or wanted some water, and the kid was like, oh, I'm sorry, you can't come in my house. And I just thought it was, okay, because, your parents don't want people in the house. And I didn't realize later it was this, form of prejudice, of racism that was, but having that surrounding and even members in my family who are of different cultures, that I was used to being around different types of people. So even now as an adult and growing up, it doesn't bother me to be in different cultural environments, but I still notice, obviously.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about, because I want to hit the symposium stuff too. There's so much going on, but I want to talk about where we are currently. You're at Millennium, right?
Yes, that's the name.
Yes, I do my homework. What's the makeup of that school? It's a performing arts school?
Yes,
correct?
It is a performing arts magnet school in Sanford, Florida. And 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Wow.
Students have to, it's 50-50. You have the kids who live in the neighborhood, and you also have the other half of kids who apply to a lottery system to get into the school, specifically for the arts. And so my program that I have, I'm theater teacher. I've taught from theater 1 through 4, but okay, well, this is my 10th year, just Monday. I just started my 10th year. And probably 8 years ago, I asked if I can have an after-school puppet club. And so they said, sure, go ahead. So then remember I said I did puppet teams at my church. So I said, can I have a puppet team? And they were like, sure, go ahead. And performing for school assemblies, be anti-drugs or whatever it was, performing arts showcases. And the administration absolutely loved it. And so then it went to, can I have a class now?
You got to
push those, right? Push it, keep asking.
So you had a class it's been 4 years?
Yep, going into my 5th year, 4 years.
This year is 5, wow.
The only puppetry arts elective class in the state of Florida. I'm probably one of the only ones in the country.
That's crazy. And what's the makeup of the school?
A third. Black,
Wow. Okay. Wow. That's really amazing.
Latin.
So this is great because we're talking about puppeteers of color. You're literally creating them on Monday. You start. You've been making them for the past 5 years.
Yeah.
Are there any things you keep in mind when you're doing and educating, especially populations that look like us? Even if it's theater arts or if it's puppetry or in general, is there anything that you like keep in the back of your head when you're educating them?
Well, my mission is always to just help people define their gifts and talents, no matter what, and to hone those skills, and bring it out in them. So I notice your talent, and then I'm just developing it. I'm growing it. And it's just interesting to totally be open. You don't know who's going to be the puppeteer of the year, type of kid, because I have kids who are very introverted, but they're some of my best puppeteers. And black, white, doesn't matter. But I even had one girl, a special needs girl, who pretty much nonverbal. She was one of my best puppeteers. Wow. I mean, they'd be lip syncing to a song, but still her basic skills were fantastic. And so I made sure to promote that. Last year I had a student who is transgender and going through a lot of stuff. And our connection was puppetry. And he now is he just moved on to high school, but amazing artist in general. And I noticed that even just providing materials and getting him to focus on his art, his work, it got him out of his funk, and it would keep him, in a positive way. So I always, I want to hone those skills, but I also look at, okay, what's going on with this kid? How can I help use the arts in order to help them build their confidence and be a better person, so the best person you can be.
That's fantastic. That's so good. 6-9. Okay. I want to make sure oh my God, there's not enough time. So you've also, I want to talk about so many things. I'm gonna switch gears. Let's just switch gears because we know that you're a puppeteer. You're a black puppeteer. You're also a black female puppeteer. We do not have a lot of those, and I can name 3.
There's a few more.
Yeah. So how do we start to get more black females into the arts, into the guilds at all levels, and even if it's like after college life, like you didn't, like, you're not like a lot of these folks are just like, when I was 7 I was doing puppet shows, but even at later ages, how do you think we start to get more black females into this art form?
It is naturally exposure, getting out there and sharing the art with other people. But just like me, how I fell into it, probably most puppeteers, we just kind of fall into this thing. It's the same way. It's kind of like finding, maybe it's a person who is an artist, visual artist, meaning, or maybe it's a performing artist in maybe they're in college or you're in high school. And so letting them, showing them that it's not just, straight acting or even musical theater, that how puppetry is this other art form, part of theater arts that you can explore, and it's an extension of yourself, to me, it's like the next level of acting, so it's really just getting out there and trying to introduce it. Of course, we're dealing with this pandemic, but this summer I watched so many videos about, puppet workshops, and even, did some myself. So this is a great time for puppeteers of color and everyone to just get their content out there and expose the world to our amazing art form.
Oh man, I had a thought. I'm thinking like something popped in my head. I was listening to Adam Cruiksinger had a really good podcast. I was listening at him, and they were talking about actually seeing puppeteers, like being physically present, because so much of our art form is about hiding and not being seen and talking through something else. And I guess it does. What's nice about a lot of stuff that you've done, especially education-wise, like the students know you, they have a personal relationship with you, and you're physically there. Your representation is physically there for the students to see a Black female puppeteer. It's powerful at the middle school language a level. I want to see that at other levels too, in college and high school too. It'd be great to get more puppetry arts and at higher level.
Absolutely.
Have you ever talked to any the high school teachers, or have any other teachers in Florida looked at what you're doing as a model?
Yeah, what's interesting, middle school theater doesn't do puppets that much, but high school does.
They do. Okay.
That I'm working on it, but high schoolers will do it. It's a unit in their in their whole curriculum. And so, I've been a consultant and tried to work with some of them, and still trying to get it out there as best as possible. So just helping even the other middle schoolers to show, like, look, this is not necessarily they have to do a team, but still, this is how you can incorporate puppetry in everything.
Right.
And even as an arts integration specialist, I talked to even the teachers at my school. I've collaborated with the ESOL teacher to help students practice their English using puppets. ESC students who are profoundly, mentally disabled, even helping them bring out, their personality and their motor skills and different things like that. So, I like to work with all different types of teachers and say, hey, look, there's another way of teaching. You don't have to just do it this way. You can bring a puppet in there.
Right. And you also did something with nativity, right? With the Hensons?
Yes.
Tell me about that, because I'm running. I want to make sure we talk about the symposium, but I want to hear the nativity stories too. So tell me about your experience with that.
It was wonderful. Shout out to Sean Keohane. Down here in Central Florida, there was the Pinocchio Marionette Theater. And as soon as I moved down here, I found it and talked to Sean, and actually kind of let me be like an intern and help him out there. And so just the first time that Jane Henson, she created the Nativity, there was a whole nother group of people who did it. But the following year, Sean, asked me to do it. And I'll just never forget that I was at the IBEX warehouse and we were about to rehearse, and I'm exploring the puppet and I flip up, the puppet, and I see, property of Jim Henson or made by Jim Henson Company, and I was like, oh my gosh. And because the funny thing is, as I said, as I'm mentored by Carol Spinney. Mm-hmm. The one thing that Carol always taught me was be yourself. You are African American, female puppeteer, just be that. And when an audition came up, and they're far and few between, I had video ready, I had everything, and that door would not open. I could not get in. And I even went as far as calling Kevin Clash at home. I want to be a puppeteer, Do you have
what did the voicemail sound like? Do you remember? Was it his voice? Was it his voice?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, he didn't do an Elmo voice. All right, cool.
Yeah, no, it was his voice. But Carol, I remember.
What's up, everybody?
His one voicemail was Oscar, and the other one was Big Bird. I remember.
Oh yeah, okay.
I remember those two. Yeah, like where he lived, and then also in New York. Yeah, there were two.
Oh, that's amazing.
But yeah, so I just couldn't pierce that wall, and I was like, man, that was my dream. I just always. So then, when the Nativity came around and I flipped over that thing, I was like, oh my gosh, like, even if it's just for this moment, I'm kind of like a Henson puppeteer.
Right, yeah.
Moment. And like I mentioned earlier, like sometimes we don't get things the way we want it, but you just never know. And that really was a wonderful satisfaction for me to, you know, to be able to do that. Speaking in Old English was very difficult though. Oh yeah, that was a little hard, but I had a wonderful time. I did it for 2 touring seasons.
Oh wow, that's great. That's amazing. Okay, let's talk about Symposium. It's coming up. It's the 22nd.
Yeah.
And it's gonna all virtual.
Yes.
And
yes.
what can we expect? What are we tackling? What are we talking about?
It is a symposium. It's called Healing Our Brand. I had to think for a second.
I knew you.
Healing Our Brand, and it's all people of color who are, well, people are speaking, and in between some of the small lectures sessions are performers. We want to spotlight and show. So to help answer that question, where are the puppeteers of color? Well, we're going to show you. And we have from Latinx to African American, and even a Native American ventriloquist.
Wow.
Yes, they do exist. So it's August 22nd, starting at 3 o'clock. Okay. It's on Eventbrite. You can find it on Eventbrite. $25 for a ticket. And the proceeds will go to sending puppetry, well, memberships in, you know, in the arts world, but puppetry world, as well as sending them on these conferences, you know?
That's great.
So I won't be the only one there.
They're perfect. Those conferences definitely are that first foray for a lot of performers to be like, oh, this is real. What I want to do is not just by myself.
Yes, absolutely.
This is fantastic. I'm so glad we got. I could go on. I'm not. I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna be well more. I'm gonna be well behaved today. But we do have questions. This is fantastic. If you have questions, submit them down below. It's not too late. I'm gonna turn it over to. David, is that you? David.
It's me.
But yeah, so this is great. I'm glad you guys got a chance to submit some questions. I'm glad we had a chance to talk a little bit. I'm really excited to hear some Q&As. All right. I'll see y'all later.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris. Edna, oh my gosh, that was so good. We were the panelist chat. We were like blowing up. You were saying stuff, and we were just like freaking out because you said so many just wonderful things. And we've got a lot of great questions, actually. And if anybody has some more while we're talking, enter them. And we will try to get to as many as we can. Okay, so the first question that I'm going to lead with here is a great question. It's from Dottie Seitz, and it says, I am Cheyenne ventriloquist in an almost all-white part of the country, central Pennsylvania. Any ideas you can share about themes I can pursue with my non-brown/black audiences that will encourage them to step out, reach out to non-white groups and individuals to get them, sorry, I'm a little dyslexic, to get to know them. I may have been the wrong person to read stuff. I have Black and Native anything puppet characters, and even they get negative reactions. Oh, Native American. I'm sorry. I thought that was anything Muppet, and that's how I read it because that's what my brain thinks when I see AM. I'm sorry. I immediately thought anything Muppet.
Muppet, right?
I know. Muppet brain is what I have.
Muppet.
Yeah. I have a Black and Native American puppet characters, and even they get negative reactions by audiences for the first minute of 2 sketches. Crazy. I'm writing a racial justice show now and would love some helpful feedback. Thank you.
Wow, Dottie. And by the way, Dottie is the Native American Cheyenne ventriloquist that will be part of our symposium. So, and she will be performing. So she's absolutely wonderful. Yeah, it's a little difficult. Maybe you have to know your audience, you know, and you yourself being who you are is just, you know, enlightening to them, you know what I'm saying? Your appearance self. So know who your audience are, and at first kind of do something that makes them a little bit comfortable and then ease into it, okay? Instead of automatically like, look, here's this puppet. You know, it's like, okay, here's something that they're used to, something that looks like them, that they can relate to, and now they're having a conversation with this one, okay? So think about your approach and definitely think about your audience of who you're performing for.
That's so good. That's perfect. That's great. That's so good. Okay, next up, this question kind of connects with that one actually. So it says, I see a lot of white puppeteers performing with black puppets they have made, for example, singing and or dancing characters that remind me of blackface minstrel history of US puppetry. I'm not sure what to say to puppeteers in these situations. Is it ever okay for white puppeteers to perform black puppets? If so, what kind, in what kind of context?
Of course, yeah, it is okay to for white puppeteers to perform with black puppets. We will address that. Dr. Paulette Richards will address that specifically at our symposium. But we have to be careful, okay? Because if you're performing especially with a puppet of a different culture or for a group of people of a different culture than your own, you need to check with a person of that culture, your performance, and to find out like, okay, this is what I want to do. Is this good or not? Can I say this or can I not say that? And part of Puppeteers America of the diversity committee is, we're here for puppeteers to email us, and you can just email the main office and they can send it to us and say, I'm thinking about doing this show, or this is the audience that I have, and what do you think? And it could be the slightest little thing that could trigger someone. So just, my advice is to check, and don't be afraid to ask. It's okay. I had a wonderful experience with someone who came up to me and said, I teach with, white teachers and black teachers, and the white teachers are in the puppetry, but the black ones aren't. Like, why aren't they? And the first thing I said was, thank you so much for even coming to me, feeling, open and coming to me to even ask me that question, and I did the best I could to answer it. But so I just say, it's ask the people, ask people around you, people who you trust, but don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. And that reminds me of when I was a kid in elementary school, and my teacher would always say, there are never any stupid questions.
Yeah.
And which, again, like what you're saying, you were so happy that she came to you and asked the question. A friend of mine recently even said to me, like, if I'm worried that I'm in a situation that something I say might be racially insensitive, what do I do? And I told him, you either be quiet or you ask a question. Like, ask the person. And that is always the right step forward, is asking the question first, because that shows you're curious, but make sure you're doing it from a place of love, of course. But it's the best way to move forward. Anyways, I'm not here to do that. I'm here to keep the questions coming. Oh,
and in the movement that's happening now, and this is the wonderful time. Like, I encourage everyone, ask questions about any other culture. I learned so much. I'm down here in Florida, but there is a huge Asian Indian community that's here. And I, befriended people, and I started asking them questions. I'm like, okay, now I understand why this is, why, traditionally why they're doing this, or culturally they're doing this or doing that. And so it was really it's a great education. It's a great education just to ask.
Absolutely, yeah, always ask. And so here's a question that I feel like I see, since you and Chris had spoke earlier about how guilds are asking, like, how do we build how do we build the diversity within our guild, but also how do we find representation in that way? And that's one of the questions we have here, which is, what do you think puppetry guilds around the country should do to expand diversity in membership and programming?
Just really get out there and like I said, think outside the box, you know, go to high schools, go even down to middle schools, you know, try to do shows. I mean, I know it's kind of hard to do shows face to face now, but even offer virtual shows. Colleges, definitely. The local Boys and Girls Club. I'm involved with my local Boys and Girls Club. And, you know, we did storytelling with puppets just to introduce the art form. And so you just never know when it's going to be that kid. You know, you're not going to necessarily grab everybody like, oh, great, there's 10 people, let's, you know, they're all going to be. It just might be that one. But, you know, think about you, you know, you and I, David, it's just, you fall in love with the art form. It just hits you and that's it. So you just never know who you're going to hit, but just you can reach out and not be afraid to reach out.
Yeah, that's so good. And that, I feel like that leads into this, another question that we had, which is something that I, you know, have experienced, which is I didn't find puppetry till I was 26, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I found it later, not late in my life, but later in my life compared to
Mm-hmm.
most puppeteers.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, how do you expose kids of color to puppetry?
Yeah, same thing. Find those organizations, go into those communities. If you want to do birthday parties, I don't like doing it. Those are violent situations, but and I say because I've had kids like smack my puppet, pull the hair, all that kind of stuff, and I was like, wait, this is like a, you know, $300 puppet, you know. So
Yeah.
I birthday parties, but still go out into your community. Like I said, find schools, find the demographic with schools that have, you know, predominantly children of color in it, and you know, put together a program. But it has to be educational, guys, especially if you're going to a school. You must make it educational, okay? So I would advise you find the standards of whatever state that you're in, the school standards. Could be theater standards, language arts, usually theater are married to each other. And when you go to that school, so now I'm thinking as a teaching artist, when you go to that school, you say, okay, I'm gonna do this puppet show, and this is what the kids are gonna get out of it, educationally as well as culturally.
Sorry, my wonderful wife, who does the amazing work behind the scenes, was asking me a question, and so
Okay.
I had to just really quickly answer. That's absolutely spot on. And so, okay, we have another question. This is gonna be our last question, and this is from the wonderful Carol Sterling, who we love.
Oh.
Wonderful. Okay, so she asks, when you started working with kids, did you teach them to build their own puppets, or did you focus more on character development using store-bought puppets?
When I first started working with puppets, it was professional puppets, and it was character development, the 5 basics of puppet manipulation, of height, you know, sight, believable movements, lip sync. So I wanted to get those skills, the technical skills with them first, developing the characters, you know, having them do a character profile, and doing puppet songs. So even before they really started, you know, the acting part, at least if they did songs and got the basic motor skills down, you know, and the techniques down of puppetry, I was good with that. And then we moved on from there. In my class, we start with building first. So it's half visual arts, half performing arts. So they build their puppet first, then they create their show, and then they perform.
That's really wonderful. Yeah, it's so important, I believe, as a puppeteer to understand how your puppet works and why it feels so good to have a particularly type-built puppet. Because when they're built well, you sometimes don't even know you're holding a puppet. It's wonderful. Okay, so go ahead. Yeah.
Amazed at the magic of puppetry. Even once they build it, of manipulating, making this inanimate object come alive. Just, it even thrills them. Like they made it, but they're like, oh my gosh, I can make this thing move. And they just have to love it.
Yeah, it's so empowering. Like that, you know, that is such a wonderful example of how empowering art is for children. And puppetry encompasses so many different aspects of art that you're exposing that kid to drawing, building, you know, working with different tools that you wouldn't normally work with that might be a little dangerous, but you learn how to use them properly. And then performance, how to express your inner soul, you know, to the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You nailed it, David. Absolutely. Being an educator, on Monday, I'm going to be doing face-to-face as well as virtual school. Not at the same time, but still. And that's what I decided to do with the students, since they're not physically, you know, half of them are not physically in the class, is really work on those foundational art skills. Because, you know, watching the masters all during the summer, you know, I'm seeing the importance of drawing and sewing, and those are just skills that we all need to have in general, but still, you know, for the kids in order to create their puppets.
Absolutely, yeah, that's so good. There was another question that popped up, but it's a question that I feel like I can answer pretty easily, but I want to say this for everyone. The question is, what is the link to more symposium info? We would love to check it out. We're going to put those links in the post email that we send so that you can sign up and and join us, because it's going to be a really, really wonderful event.
Really wonderful event. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Please sign up.
Yeah, please. Yes, sign up. It's going to be so good. That's all the questions. So let's bring back Liz Hara, of course, and Chris. If we can get you. Bum, 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 bum. There she is.
Is this dance party time?
It is dance party time. Edna, thank you so much for coming here to talk with us today. You are magnificent. Is there any other project that you want to plug before starting the music?
Just that symposium.
Excellent. We will see you there.
We did real quick. Was that something you wanted me to talk about, dear? On the thing, I just got a chat. We got a this just in, Cassie. So we are gonna have a. She's going for it, but we are gonna have
her password
that happens after this event. So please let us know what you think about today's conversation, what questions you have, what people you'd like to see in the future, because we read all of them, and it really helps us make this a much better, much more. You know, representative and wonderful event. So yeah, let us know what you think. All right, let's do it.
Awesome.
Thank you, everybody. All right, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, bye, everybody.